Hi, Ken. Thank you for stopping down with us.
Hi,
And
Tom.
how are you today?
I'm good.
Good. For everybody who's tuning into this, we've just gone through all sorts of technical stuff to make sure we can make this recording happen for you. And I feel very fortunate to be sitting here with Mr. Ken Ralston, who is over there. I'm pointing in the wrong direction on my screen.
Okay.
Um, so, I think if anybody's here, they probably know your name already. They probably know what you do. But do you want to give us a brief intro, and then we can sort of talk fun stuff?
Yeah. Well, let's see. I'm Ken Ralston, visual effects supervisor. I started at ILM on Star Wars when we were down in Los Angeles. Went up to Marin County. We did some movies. And then people liked the movies. So we had jobs for a long time. And that's kind of it.
That's a good summary. End of the video. Thanks, everybody, for watching.
See you
Have a
later.
great day. So, for starters, I mean, to start at ILM on Star Wars is kind of a special thing because ILM didn't even exist before Star Wars. It wasn't like you were just signing up for a job that you knew was good and stable.
Right. I mean, I've said this story before, but Dennis was contacted first. I'm not even sure how he was connected to Dykstra in the group, but knew somebody, I guess.
I think Phil claims that one.
Okay, we'll give it to him.
Yeah, he needs more.
No, I want to take credit.
That's fine.
Anyway, so Dennis had the script. John Berg and I, we were in somebody's car. I can't remember. Might have been a Volkswagen because it felt very small. Went to a restaurant at lunch. We're all working at Cascade Pictures, where we all sort of started. Really, a great place to start. And looked at the script, and it was really cool. And Dennis was going to go do that, and that was kind of it. And kind of forgot about it. And then I got a call from Dennis saying, "Hey, you want to be my assistant on this movie called Star Wars, George Lucas?" And I went, "Oh, sure." Thinking like anyone in any part of the movie business, well, this will be, 6 months, 8 months, or whatever it's going to be. And then we'll all be on the street again, desperate to find another job. And I guess part of that was true. But anyway, that's kind of how it all started, and off we went.
How many years later that it's like, oh, that couple of month job really held up there, huh?
Yeah, that really worked out well.
Yeah.
But, none of us had a clue what was about to. How could we know what was about to happen?
Well, it's almost miraculous what did happen. And I don't mean that in any kind of like, flowery kind of way, or even talking about the movie itself, but just that any movie gets made is sort of a miracle.
It is, because they are so painful and full of problems and variables you can't anticipate, et cetera, et cetera. And I mean, in that movie, of course, because anyone who knows the history of it, was nothing but headaches for everybody, especially George.
Right. Yeah. So you talked about Cascade. You talked about one of my favorite people in the entire world, John Berg, who I think might be. My wife accuses him of giving her cavities just anytime she spends a little bit of time around him because he's that sweet.
Oh man, you got that right.
So how did you first intersect with John? And let's talk about Dennis as well. And then the Cascade. How does that end up happening for you?
Well, I hope some people out there know what I'm talking about. I guess they would, but when I was a little boy growing up in Downey, California, the only information, of course, I was nuts about fantasy films and monster movies when I was a kid, and makeups really kind of got me into this whole thing. And there was a magazine called Famous Monsters of Filmland.
Uncle Forey.
Ackerman. Oh yeah, Forey. And that was it. That was the only information out there. And believe me, it was pretty sparse in amongst all the puns and everything.
Right.
But there was enough in there to just get me kind of excited about stuff. And there would be like contests to take the Aurora monster models and make them look cool. And then there was you could win a prize, things that made it feel accessible. And at one point I'm glad I don't have a copy of this letter. I can't imagine what it's like. But I wrote Forey, of course, thinking I'll never hear from this person again.
Right.
And just said, I like your thing, and wouldn't it be fun? Anyway, he wrote me back. Did he write back? Or I guess he wrote me back and said, hey, why don't you come over to the house? We'll show you the stuff. I didn't really know all of the stuff that was there.
Right.
So a friend of mine, Glenn Anderson, and myself, my folks drove us over there. I can't remember. How old were we? I think we were like, I hate to think, 13?
Oh, wow.
Something. 12? I don't remember.
Yeah.
Went over there, and of course, holy crap. I mean, his house was filled with the most amazing things. There's King Kong over here, the Emir. By the way, your Emir was very cool.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
And just all kinds of amazing things to see. And then also what was there was, what was there? Who was there? Was John Berg and Bill Hedge. And both of them working at Cascade.
Right.
And they walked us through and told us about stuff. We must have been a little older only because I don't know if Glenn and I were starting to work on this 8mm opus. I don't think we had started yet, called The Bounds of Imagination. But anyway, we met the guys, we saw this amazing place and went away. We were invited again when Ray Harryhausen was visiting Ray. And so we got folks drove us back there.
Yeah.
And, what reminded my case, I was a kid, and there's Ray, and I didn't know what to say. I was so idiotic. Years later, I saw a picture of Ray, and standing behind him is Phil Tippett, and I guess Phil was there.
Oh, gosh.
But I didn't know.
You just didn't know.
So anyway.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. Somewhere there's a picture of you and I at Phil's, like the first time we met, and it's just one of those, like, we barely even talked that day. I think I was mostly talking to John or Don Bees or something, and it's just, it's like, oh wow, right? No, Ken, like,
oh yeah, that guy,
right? Yeah. Oh, he was there too.
So anyway, we connected there. Then we went off, Glenn and I, to do this movie during a course of a year while we were in high school, and we would do it on the weekends. Blah blah blah. We showed parts of the movie to John and Bill, and I think probably because Dave Allen was working there.
Oh yeah. And
I don't know if Jim Danforth, because he came and went. Dennis Murin was there, so we showed pieces of this to him, to the gang, and probably Phil Kellison and Joe Rayner. Anyway, they were like, "Whoa, that's pretty amazing for you two twerps." And they didn't say that, but that's how I took it.
They said it in a nice way.
Nice way. And we went away, and then how did that work? I think we just got out of high school, and I got a call from, who called me? Maybe it was John. I don't even remember anymore. And they were offering us a job for the summer to go there and work on a kid's film. And we said no. No, we said yes. And that's how it really started at Cascade. So we went and did this funky thing where we met Lane Liska, who was also animating on the project. And anyway, that's how we kind of started stumbling into the world that I ended up in.
So it's so funny because so many of the people I run into that wind up in this business, for myself, it was the makeup was the first draw and the monsters. But as a kid, it was 8mm films in the late 70s, early 80s. Then it was a VHS camera and trying to figure out, if I pause the VHS and I move someone out of frame and then we do it again and put a smoke pot, someone could look like they blew up. We were always trying to do some sort of effect. Was that you as a kid, like this opus of yours?
Oh,
I imagine definitely. It's just all effect shots,
It was definitely me as a kid. I started when, I'm guessing, my folks had a Kodak 8mm camera we probably got on green stamps or something.
Oh, yeah.
And I must have been, I hate to think how young. Was I in the 6th grade or 7th? It must have been 6th grade. I was making movies then. The first thing was called Unknown Island, a fabulous motion picture.
Oh, sure, yeah.
50 feet of 8mm footage. And that's how that started.
It sounds like a double feature at the drive-in. That's a perfect title.
But I was fascinated with the whole thing. I didn't I didn't know what I was doing, but there was something, you can't explain it. When you get into these things, it just starts to be a fun thing to do. That's all, just fun.
And there's a draw to it, though. It's like a magic trick. Like, sometimes fooling people is fun.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it was. Then you'd show it to the neighbors and my folks, and everyone go, "Oh, well, they were being kind, of course, but that's really good." But it was that kind of just people commenting on it that gives you a little more incentive to do the next one.
Wow.
And it just kind of kept stumbling around like that. And I was also doing makeups. Do you remember the famous Monsters issue that Dick Smith did?
Oh yeah.
Well, I got that, and I was trying to do some of those simpler ones, and that I just kept doing that. But I also was obviously a huge Ray Harryhausen fan, who I didn't even know who the hell he was.
Right.
I just see certain movies and go, well, why does that look so good and everything else looks like shit out there? And eventually I started seeing his name on the movie going, oh, wait a minute, this guy. So I started doing stop motion with this little 8mm camera I had. My folks got me a 8mm Bolex, 3 different lenses.
Wow.
And that's how I was playing around with that stuff, and with clay figures and all, self-motivated. Just, I'm sure my parents were worried.
Right.
Yeah. This is never going to work out for this guy. We're going to have to, I don't know, send him to some kind of therapist.
Right. Some sort of, there's got to be a camp for this, like some kind of re-education to get them out. I don't know. There should be some sort of support group for parents of FX kids, so that they
they put up with so much. Oh man.
Right. He took over the basement. He turned it into a laboratory. There's weird smells and foam latex. Did you know Bob Burns at all? Did you ever join any of the gangs doing his Halloween shows or anything?
I kind of did very simple things on at a few of those, which were a blast.
Yeah.
And I met Bob because we're all part of the same sort of group that kept moving around together. Right. And because no one else would have us. And I did the Exorcist one where Rick had done some stuff.
The Thing in the Attic.
And I was doing drawers on a little thing. I was slamming the drawers. And what else did I do? I think I was on the what was the other one? I can't remember now. A couple of them.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of what was after The Exorcist. Was it the Time Machine that he did with the rotating set walls?
See, I wasn't there for that one. There was also one about was it War of the Worlds? Saucer had crashed into the top of Bob's roof.
That was one of them, and I think
so I was there for that. Yeah.
Nice. I know he did a Jekyll and Hyde in the front room there. I'm lucky to know Bob and Kathy for like 20 years, and just like, Kathy, God rest her soul, but
definitely
the two of the most supportive people any FX-minded person could have ever met in their life.
Right.
Owe a huge debt to both of them, and I never got to go to Forey's, but I know that feeling you're talking about, because I think about the first time I went to go see Bob, and to go into Bob's basement and just holy cow, like, how do you even process this? You mentioned Phil Kellison, and then we'll get away from the Cascade stuff for a minute. So Cascade, for anybody that doesn't know, old time effects house that so many folks got started at, that would do stuff for commercials, a lot of stop motion, and Phil Kellison was the guy there, right? That was I know that both Dennis and John really credit Phil with being an early mentor and a huge supporter of them in their careers. Did you feel you got the same?
Absolutely. I mean, I try to put myself in like Phil Kellison's place. So here I come in, this 17-year-old nothing, and I get a job there. And, everyone there and Phil Kellison were so supportive, so kind. We had a blast. I learned so much, but, to put up with me trying to learn, these are for like national commercials and things that I'm involved in. And I don't know if I would give someone a chance. I hope I would.
I would hope
And
so.
anyway, he was amazing, and we all owe him a lot of credit.
Yeah, it sounds like it's a weird nexus. There's a few of these things that sort of happen along the way where just the right people cycle into the right place at the right time, and
Yeah.
The people that everybody talks kind of about, like, oh, all the people that came out of ILM, and that's amazing on its own. But if you take that half a step back and you just go, all the people that came out of Cascade, like you mentioned, Lane Liska, John, Dennis, Phil did some time there. Tippett too.
Phil would come in off and on. I did a few jobs with Phil, and Tex Avery was there.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay,
yourself,
Tex
of course.
Avery's there. Okay, fine.
Yeah. Oh, just Tex Avery. That's all.
Dave Allen, Max Morgan.
Oh,
you know
yeah.
Max?
No, actually I don't. But
Max Morgan was the down shooter, the animation camera guy at Cascade, who had worked at Disney.
That's amazing. Yeah, it really is just such a place, and to be able to track it back to the head there, to go like, okay, well, why was this such a magical? Why did so many people come out of it? Is it is a lot of that down to Phil Kellison and the support he gave all these people, and maybe just in picking the right people, or just one of these weird nexuses in the world where the like-minded sort of found each other, and
I think it's all of the above. I mean, it was a lot of things because we were all obsessed with effects of any kind, and would talk about it endlessly and try to talk about the things we hated and the things we loved.
Right.
Anyway, try to incorporate that into our work.
Yeah. No, and I definitely get that. I know, I've definitely gravitated towards the same kind of folks, people who are obsessed about the same things, in our case, mostly about Star Wars or, movies that came out when we were kids.
Right.
But even beyond that, it goes back to Ray's work. It goes back to, for me, certainly all the Universal classics and stuff. I'm a huge nut for all of that stuff. Okay, so all of this leads to you starting at ILM, at the start of ILM. And then 20 years there, about?
Yeah, 20 years.
And eventually visual effects supervising. I have a short list that I saw online. It was Wrath of Khan, Cocoon, the Back to the Future movies, Roger Rabbit, Rocketeer, Death Becomes Her, Forrest Gump, The Mask, Jumanji, one of the Men in Black movies, Castaway. Are you tired just from hearing that list? That sounds like a lot of work.
I'm not tired because it doesn't even seem real. It's weird. I look back and go, what? Did I do any of this? I mean, that was me doing that? It's hard to believe at times because, first of all, how lucky could I be to get most of those projects? There's a few clunkers out there, but
we don't have to talk about those.
Oh, I'd probably get sued if I did because I'd go on a rant you wouldn't believe. But it was also the continuation of connections and the way things were going in the cosmos for all of us that seemed to work out. I mean, I get caught up with, I get connected to Bob Zemeckis when I'm at ILM.
Yeah.
He was going to do Cocoon, but no, they're going to take him off Cocoon, and I'm going to work with Ron Howard. Hey, now Bob's going to do Back to the Future. So I do both movies at once somehow. I don't know how.
And I was going to say, and those are, not effects light movies. Like, those are two heavy hitters.
Back to the Future actually wasn't that heavy duty. It was going to be a lot worse and better, I thought. But I mean, for the kind of work that I thought I could juggle better, a lot more miniature stuff where an atomic bomb was going to go off.
Right, yeah.
You know this story, right? And that's how the car was going to go back to where it's supposed to be. Anyway. And then that got changed because, of course, it was too expensive for that first Back to the Future. Anyway, we went up there and things just started to click like in a way again. Who would have thought?
Yeah, it's insane. It's funny because, you're right. The first Back to the Future, I guess, I kind of put the three together in my mind. Although for me, the first movie is such it's
a beaut.
As an overall, it's so self-contained and just, it's so fun. And the sequels are fun too, though. But those sequels are insanity when it comes to the effects stuff, especially the second one. you're talking about doing Cocoon and Back to the Future concurrently at a time when effects was still much more handmade, you know, in a way. Even just the printing and the opticals and stuff were a lot more heavy lifting. How does that process change supervising a movie like that between, say, you know, something like Castaway or one of the Men in Blacks, you know, a couple decades later, going back to Cocoon and Rocketeer and that kind of stuff?
Well, obviously, a lot of the technology has changed. I mean, it's you can get more subtle nuances with digital compositing, and you can do a lot of cool stuff if you know what the hell you're looking for. Or you can do a lot of crap and just shovel it out, which I also see way too much of, because show me anything that doesn't have visual effects in it now.
Everything. Yeah.
It does not exist.
Yeah.
And some of it's brilliant and some of it's not so good. But the thing that's the same for me is what I'm looking for. And it's that final image. Now, how it all gets there is what has changed. And so you have to accommodate during the analog days and models and stuff, which, by the way, were more fun than the digital days.
100%.
Just my own personal opinion.
I suspected.
Plus, you know, you had a small group of people you knew, instead of thousands of people spread around the globe doing it. Kind of takes away some of the personal touches you can get. Anyway, so that part, you know, is quite different. But I always kind of approach everything the same way. I talk more about in bigger terms on lighting, action, drama, compositions, how, especially the new group of digital artists, there's so many of them, like I know anything about what they're doing to that degree? No. And so I try to keep just talking about the movie, the look, what it means, what are you trying to say with a shot? Don't just blast through something and think your one shot you're working on is the only thing the movie's about. Sometimes that happens.
Yeah.
And so that's the approach. And also in the shooting of it, in some ways it's become a lot easier because you can, let's face it, any dumbbell supervisor can get out there. You can shoot whatever you want, and it can work. And the way things are shot now, it may not work as well. And if to fix something may cost a fortune, but you can't get yourself out of problems if you have to. But I still try to go in and do things in the most efficient, you know, time sensitive, money sensitive way as you can, and not waste time. Yeah.
And get the best blend. Get your lighting right on the live action stuff so that it's easier to blend with the stuff later and all of that. Yeah.
Sure.
It reminds me a little. So we do a lot of digital work in when we're, you know, creating stuff. Sometimes there are pieces where we're scanning props and outputting them. Sometimes we're doing things where it's a combination of both. We still do plenty of hand sculpting, but I find a lot of the guys who really tend to blow me away on their digital sculpts were guys that used to work in clay. You know, especially on the organic stuff. They just have the inherent feel for.
But I also think and I'm sure Phil Tippett would totally go into this. It's like digital artists who are creating these creatures and stuff should be learning how to sculpt with clay and all this stuff. It gives you a different spatial reality. You understand things in a very different way. And at least that's what I think. And you can apply it. Just it's something that goes deep inside of you, and your intuition when you're doing it in a different format. It's all there, and you know it becomes more like you just know where to take it.
It's like a language. It's almost like, you know, it's like the alphabet you need to make the words, you know. It's like you can either just go and make the words, and that works, but it's like if you really know the alphabet, you can get in there. So as we were saying before we started, blah 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 blah, Return of the Jedi.
Right.
Return of the Jedi comes about. Primarily on Jedi, you're doing visual effects, space shots, and I'll get into we'll get to the creature stuff in a minute. But I look at those composites in some of those space shots where there's countless elements on the screen. How in the heck are you tracking that and figuring? And the camera's got to move backwards from the to the thing, and you're how do you guys track that? How did that?
We're all super geniuses.
Oh, well, there you go. Okay.
Did I say that? Well, luckily, before Jedi, we had, we were beaten into understanding how the Dijkstra Flex worked and the kind of way of shooting these things, which was a big learning process over the first film and the second one too. And how you keep track of it? Well, you start off with either you have some form of previs at the time, or you have what we would come up with, basically Joe Johnston drawings or Nilo Rodas, the storyboards that would show what, in an ideal world, what George might want, no matter who the director who got credit was on the film, but it was George. And so I would just take that and I'd say, okay, well, what are the big important elements here? Let's say it's that shot everyone brings up, but there's others. Yeah. It's the Millennium Falcon coming at us. It's being chased, and there's TIE ships firing, and there's crap in the background. There's ships everywhere going nuts. So you go, okay, I know the Falcon's important. I'll start there. So I'll program that, and you're right. So the ship starts far away. The camera's at the end of the track.
Right.
And the camera's doing this, and the model's rolling, and we go by the model, back it up. Any light passes, shut the lights off, turn the lights on, do another one of that, do it again. Any diffusion passes. Anyway, that's your first step.
Yeah.
And then you also, as you're doing this, before you shoot the actual color footage, you're shooting an RAR. What's that stand for now? I don't remember. It was a military black and white film. Basically, you would shoot that. It would pop out a negative.
Right.
Very quickly. So you could take that as your starting point. And you would run that on the projector, your 8mm, Moviola.
Right.
That was built specifically for film. And then you would start going, okay, there's that. Now I need to, and you have a grid. This is boring, but you have a grid on the Moviola, and you say, okay, look, that little square there, that's where I need a tie ship, and it's going to go up the grid at this point here, and you lay it out, and it's all drawn out for me. And then you take it to the set, you put in a tie ship, and you start running through this process of all the different ships, the actions you want it to have, the light, make sure the lighting's all close to what it should be. And then the background stuff, even if I didn't personally shoot it, I mean, we knew what we needed.
Right.
And I can't remember if I did on that shot or not. I may have.
Yeah.
Because all the stuff was on the stage.
Planet, and there's a Death Star, and goodness.
Yeah. And then you would say, good luck, optical.
Right. Yeah. Here's a bucket of film rolls. Good luck with this. I assume you guys use buckets. I don't know. When you get to a certain amount of film, that's just the only measure.
It's probably true.
Someone online figured you as the guy who snuck a sneaker into one of the shots, and I believe a potato. Can we go on record? Are you prepared to own up to that?
Well, it's the potatoes are they're in the asteroid field. It's only because who knows why? Because I'm a jackass.
It looked like a potato.
Well, some of the models look like potatoes, and I'm sure I was with the guy who was assisting me, Cell Eddie, and I was just probably going, wow, you could have just stuck some potatoes up here. And then, of course, the way I do things is like, hey, you know what?
Yeah,
let's go to Ralph's at our dinner break, pick up some potatoes, because we were shooting on the night shift, so no one could see us do it. Of
course, yeah, that explains a lot.
And stick some potatoes on the model mover, and not ones that are featured, of course.
Of course not, no.
And they're flying through there. And then the sneaker, I think it was actually a photo of my sneaker.
Oh.
And I used to put a lot of weird stuff in the background just because you can't tell.
Right.
There'd be wads of gum for ships and things like that. Anyway, it's minutia. In the old days, it's like an old battleship model for, let's say, some 1940s war movie.
Right.
If you ever got a good close look at one of those big miniatures, you'd go, are you kidding me? Right. Is that on the surface? A bunch of wooden blocks and a bunch of junk? Yeah.
But it works in the context.
And to me, it's really about learning the language of what you're doing.
Yeah.
What's really noticeable? What are you seeing that makes sense or not make sense. What do you want to waste your time on, or spend the real critical hours you have on the really important elements? The rest you can get in there if you know what you're doing.
What's going to be out of focus? What's going to be in the background?
Exactly.
A little like matte painting, maybe, because matte paintings. Most people who see them in person, the first time they see a matte painting, they go, "That's so loose. That's so soft. Is this really what that looked like? It looked photorealistic on the screen." And it's about knowing where you can get away with that.
That's right, and it's a good lesson too, because I can tell you in the digital realm, as you're getting into that, a lot of folks in certain instances seem to just naturally go the hardest, complicated, expensive way possible, because that's what the system's built for. And trying to simplify things can be more difficult. I've done it in other movies, and we figured out ways to get around certain things. But yeah, it's not as simple as to grab the dumbest thing you can imagine, what's next to you, throw it out there and shoot it and get away with it.
Right. Well, I just think it's neat that we've just launched probably hundreds or thousands of people online looking for a wad of gum in the background of one of your movies now. So
I can tell you, it's the scenes of the is it the rebel good guy ships in Jedi, the ones that look like giant sausages?
Yeah, the little pickle ships. Yeah,
the pickle ships. Yeah, that's what we used to call it. It's in those shots.
Wow, yeah. There are people right now going to like Disney Plus and pausing a 4K screen to see what they can find.
It probably also because the fans can be so ravenous at times.
Yeah.
What flavor gum was it?
Oh no! Do you recall?
No, I hope not.
If you want to know, ask in the comments, folks. Like and subscribe. I'll give you two more ship questions, just because I'm as much of a creature guy as I am. I love models too. I love just the practical nature of that stuff that you guys were making back then. Did you have a favorite ship working on the Star Wars films? And was there one that was particularly tough to shoot?
It's probably the same ship. It's the Millennium Falcon, at least on the big version of the Millennium Falcon. It was one of the first models made for the first film.
Right.
And it weighed a ton. And all it was it took a lot of logistics to put it in the simplest place to shoot and to do the simplest moves. So that made it hard, but it was a fun ship to light. And then when Empire came around and I saw the kinds of scenes I was hopefully going to do, the model shop, we had them build the smaller 2-foot model so it could be more acrobatic and we could actually get stuff shot for the movie.
Yeah.
And that was used not all the time, but it was used for shots that made sense to use it in.
Yeah.
High ships chasing it and all of that. And that I always liked the Millennium Falcon. I just thought it was a cool design.
It's very unique, and I think the stuff they captured for Empire, that you guys pulled off there. Some of those ship moves are just beautiful on that thing.
Yeah, thanks.
I'm sure everybody throws these things at you, but yeah, the flip up into the cave. It's such a gorgeous shot. The camera move that goes with it, and of course the musical cue with the little the flutes up and down on it.
There is the music.
Yeah, it helps, right?
It helps a lot.
So I'll have someone will be very upset if I don't ask about all those sort of comic art drawings you did for the Return of the Jedi behind the scenes, I guess, crew. How does that stuff come about? Is that just more free time on the night shift, or
it's waiting around while the camera's shooting something? It can take a long time, and I'm always doodling. I'm drawing all the time, so I'd sit there and try to come up with some stupid images. By the way, thanks for sending me some of those stupid images.
Yeah, of course.
I hadn't seen some of them for a while, and I would do night crew notes. So I would write stuff that I wanted the day shift to do to continue on what I had been doing on the night shift, or what we needed. Mm-hmm. And so it would just kind of be that sort of thing. And I would draw whatever it was. I'm sure some of it is so tasteless and awful. Well, and one thing you sent me, the Jabba the Hutt on Darth.
Oh, yeah.
What I think that is George wanted, because we were all, being beaten and we were wore out. So he was asking everyone to come up with a design for a t-shirt, that's all.
Right.
Of something like saying, I hold up under pressure, something like that. And so I did a series of drawings. I think that's one of them, And I think he actually picked one with Yoda in a straight jacket that I had done.
Oh gosh. I'll keep my eyes out for that. It was Jason Gibner was the one who found those and sent them. So Jason, Ken, thanks
Thank you, Jason. It was fun to see. It's also, there was that one sketch of just looks like a zombie face going,
Yeah.
which I haven't seen for who knows how long.
I'm a doodler too. I get that. I have some people at the shop with me that, you just can't leave a scrap of paper anywhere near some of these folks. It's just, there's gonna be something on it by the time they leave.
I would do a lot of doodling up in my office and draw stuff, some of it probably relatively finished just for laughs.
Okay.
And I would throw it in my trash can. And John Knoll's now wife, Jennifer, was working at ILM at the time. And apparently she pulled stuff out of my trash can that she still has. So I don't know what she's got, but they're probably worth pennies by now.
Maybe even nickels. To me, that sounds like an art show. It's like Ken Ralston's trash.
Yeah.
And I guess the apostrophe there, it's like, is that possessive or is that like an is? I don't know. We'll leave that. That's the beauty in the interpretation of art.
That's right. It's how you want to see it.
That's right. So we started talking again here because of the Weequay maquette, which you sculpted for the Jedi Creature Crew. So for folks out there, we're doing this line of maquettes. It's called the Archive Collection. We're going to the Lucasfilm Archives and scanning all of these amazing little bits of concept art into the digital space so that we can output them really as accurately as possible for people. And, we've got a few out so far, and Weequay is the next up. So that sculpt always jumped out at me among the rest of them. He's stoic, he's haunting, he's noble. There's beautiful wrinkling and details and the hair and all of the necklace. Like he's got a ton going on him, and I love the style of the paint on him in particular. So how do you wind up going from models and stuff to making these maquettes for the Creature Shop?
Well, luckily, some of us were doing all kinds of jobs before we even got to ILM, just because we were nuts and we loved it. And so I was always sculpting stuff for my own fun, or when I was at Cascade, sculpting things we might need for some of the shots, or I would test myself as sculpting characters in clay on an armature, casting the whole thing, and just learning. And loved all of that, and I had a certain knack for some sculpting. I'm no Phil Tippett, but I could kind of fight my way through some stuff. And when we were offered, because the first thing I did on Jedi was to be connected to the monster shop that Phil was heading up. And that was asked, what kind of designs can this whole group, right there, that's why ILM was so great. All of you people, why don't you put your hands in it, get to some paper, whatever, sculpt. You're all being offered this chance to come up with some stuff. It's like, oh, okay.
Right.
How fun is that?
They didn't just hand you a bunch of designs and say, here, make this. They said, dream some stuff up.
Yeah, so we all went off. Some of the things you sent me, I would do some real quick, sloppy sketches on paper. Uh-huh. In fact, one of them, it's funny because I obviously had drawn a dog creature to be used that wasn't used, but I obviously stole it for Star Trek 3.
Oh.
There's a dog character I did for it's Chris Lloyd's dog.
That's
so you see, I wasn't even going to take the time to come up with a new design.
Listen, when you've done good work, you go back to it,
Anyway.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No. I was just going to compliment you. I believe Star Trek 3, I find that movie to be so fun just in general. But that's another one where the effect shots are just some amazing, beautiful things in that movie. And
thanks. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. So we all did our thing. So there were drawings and some maquettes. Some maquettes I did more elaborately. Mm-hmm. I was trying to come up with an idea for the Weequay character that was, some of these are supposed to be out with Jabba's hut, Jabba the Hutt's, ship out there, his boat thing, and in the desert it's hot. what would that look like? And then I started sculpting it. I guess I was flashing on the old Moby Dick movie and Queequeg. Of course, it doesn't look anything like that person,
Right.
really. And I didn't even put any tattoos on his face. I think at the beginning I probably was thinking of doing it, but it wouldn't work with the wrinkles. So I just started doing that, just the head, and sculpted it in Sculpey, cooked it, painted it with acrylic paint, had fun, had a great time doing that. And there's the hair piece. I don't know where I got that fake hair from, and the ponytail.
Yeah.
And just, it was fun coming up with the little nonsensical things that go on it. You never knew what George was going to pick out of this stuff. So that was one of several others that I had done. And some of them made it into the movie.
Yeah. Well, and the Weequay, it's funny, so they call him Queequeg throughout the production process, it looks like. There's lots of little call outs and names here and things. And I definitely, what you're saying resonates. It's like, you saw something and you pulled the inspiration from it, but you didn't copy it, and something new came out of that. And I think, that's kind of a thing all effects guys kind of do. We absorb, we digest, and then we spit out something new. But I just think it's a really neat maquette. I think it's got that sense of nobility about it. There's that stoic head back. I love, there's like an indication, maybe it's like a little ear hole or something way in the back, because he doesn't have, he's got big ears, but he's got something else behind it, and he's got like,
I'm trying to remember, did I put something in his ears? Or
he's got a little earring in one ear, the top.
Oh, okay.
And I know he's got like a little necklace on, which
just stuff I found, or
it's neat. It's a really cool one. It's, of course, all those little elements you add onto it just make it harder for us when we go to recreate this stuff. So thanks, but but we're doing our best, and it's going to be a really neat addition. It's funny, actually, the prototype is hanging out up on the shelf over there. But with next to the Max Rebo, Phil's Bib Fortuna, that's Phil's Jabba, Tony McVeigh's Gamorrean from one of the more modern things, and some of Phil's Tauntaun stuff. Yeah, Tony's another just sweet, nice guy, and oh boy, is he a brilliant sculptor.
No kidding.
You mentioned some of the other ones. So there was one that the production called Wolf, which always kind of confused me because he doesn't look like a wolf at all. But he was eventually known as Klaatu, and he's the sort of scaly reptilian guy. He's got the hat. You did a little bust sculpt, very similar scale and size to the Weequay. Do you want to talk about him at all?
All that was said to me, the Weequay, nothing was said. But at one point during the course of this, I guess George had said, I want to get like a lizard-looking guy. That's all. That's all you hear.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. I'll go try and do that, and and that's how that showed up.
Nice. And then we've the folks at home will know these names. I'm somewhat better with the crew names myself, but there's Pote Snitkin, who's like a full body. You went just right to the craft store on that guy. He's got an outfit. He's got a hunchy pose. 6 nostrils.
I wanted to have some fun with it, and actually, I like that design a lot. I always sort of thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I wish it had been in the movie more.
Yeah. Isn't that always
it's like just in the background, he's like got the rudder on a skiff or something running it.
Yeah. Isn't it always the way, like, the coolest ones never seem to make it in front of the camera?
That's true.
And the long neck guy's real cool. Kind of got turned up in the prequels, although I think your sculpt is more alien. The anatomy on the face is more unique, a little less unique.
I actually had asked, because I saw whatever prequel that was. Anyway, sorry, folks. And I saw this one character in one of the scenes. I was thinking, oh, that's funny. That sort of reminds me a little bit.
Yeah.
But what are the odds of that? And then I had talked to Doug Chang at some point, and he was saying, they went back through a bunch of that old stuff and went, hey, they pulled stuff out, and that really is how it got in there.
I kind of like Star Wars tends to do that. The people who are, doing the art departments and stuff like that now, they dig through what wasn't used on the originals, because you guys put out so much work that there was only so much that could get in, and really, some of the cast-offs are great pieces and really interesting looks. The when you were doing those little designs, you basically, you make it sound like you just had a totally free hand. Was anybody coming by and saying, no, try this, no, try that? It was just you guys went and played.
Just did it. In fact, I probably did some of it at home. I mean, I just would do whatever I was doing during the day, and then get the old Sculpey out, and there you go, and have some laughs with it, and then bring it in, and you just waited to hear, is that what you want? Or, but I didn't show it like you'd be forced to do now, every couple of minutes to somebody. Oof. And so anyway, I would just put the finished product in front, and boom.
That's amazing.
It was either in or it was out.
And George was a pretty good curator, I think, of creatures, it seemed.
Yeah.
There's, when you look through all of those designs, I mean, he had a great shelf of goodies to choose from, but he really picked the strongest stuff. And I think because he had so many different hands on it, you got these bold and different and varied. It doesn't look like your typical monster movie where all the monsters feel the same. They all have the same vibe. Like, you guys really went in a lot. I mean, you made one that looks like a lobster on a rock, like, and they made that guy too. Like, somebody actually sculpted the rock lobster.
I was actually shocked that made it in. I mean, it actually was made because it was such a hideous little thing. Anyway.
Oh, hey. When it came time to take those maquettes and turn them into full-size stuff, were you still in the creature department at that point, or you had moved on? So
I wasn't around I would, obviously, you're working at a place where I went off to do Star Trek II. The Wrath of Khan.
A movie no one's ever heard of.
They've never heard of it, and no one likes it.
Nobody.
But that was a blast, by the way.
Yeah.
And plus, it was a chance to be a supervisor, shared supervisor credit, but still. And so I got that break. But at that time, then Phil and the other people in the monster shop, which you could walk over and visit and see what they're doing, go see what's happening on Star Trek 2, go see. That's the way the place was. And what a wild, great time that was. And go in, and I'll be honest, I don't think I ever said this to Phil, and I apologize, Phil. I always was a little miffed that Weequaig was sculpted to look older and more haggard for the movie. Puffier, he sort of lost that stoic sort of thing that I was going for.
He was a little more
like he was an old Weequaig.
All right, Phil.
Phil.
Yeah, gonna have to have Phil on next, and we'll just fight this out. I feel like this would be the time in the talk show where we've got Phil right now, and we bring him in
right off camera here.
Well, it's funny. One of the things I was going to ask is, how did you feel about the interpretations of your sculpts to full scale? And certainly, so okay, we know how you feel about Weequaig. Everybody else.
It's all fine. It's all fine. And the Weequaig is fine.
All right. Well, Phil, he's going to let you off the hook. Yeah.
Now, if he had been like a character who had a big role or something, I'd be like, well. But anyway, the others look pretty close to what I did, I think.
Yeah, it's pretty close. I almost wonder. I have to look. I don't know if they took his. Did they take his ears off for the final? I have to look now. I've been so focused on the maquette, I've started to lose how the final looked. So, we're now almost 40 years since you made that little sculpt. Probably over 40 years, because you probably did that in, when you were very young at the time, though, so it's fine.
Oh, boy.
So, 40 years later, that character now, and I don't expect that you're necessarily following along all, because there's so much Star Wars that comes out.
Probably not.
But, so in one of the animated series, there's a big character who's a Weequaig alien. There's a character that showed up in the Mandalorian show and the Book of Boba Fett, who's a speaking role that's a Weequaig character, one of the more foreground.
Oh, really?
Yeah. There's one even in the Disney ride down in the Star Wars land in Disney World. They have.
I guess maybe Disney lost my address or something. I haven't
Right.
got any royalty
That's
checks
weird. Yeah.
yet. Yeah, I
You
think
know,
that's it.
it's tough to keep track of stuff. Look, it was 40 years ago. So,
Oh
maybe they
boy.
sent it to the old address. Probably got returned. I think, but it's kind of neat that design indoors. Um,
Yeah, that's fun to know. I had no idea.
I'll dig up some pictures for you to show you the interpretations. They're all unique. But it's it's cool. And how does it feel when you see stuff like that? When you come back years later and you see people are still buying action figures of something you sculpted?
I don't know. I mean, it just seems very surreal to me. I feel very lucky that we had any chance to be involved with all these different aspects of the movie.
Hmm.
And come on. I mean, even now, how many years later, and it's still we're discussing it.
Yeah, we're having this talk, and that's
we're having this talk about this movie that's 40 years old, and it's like, okay, wow.
Yeah.
It's too weird for me to take even seriously. It's just kind of an odd part of our society. It's just an amazing moment that these films are so big for so many different generations.
Yeah. And to go down your list, I mean, granted, I left the stinkers off, but like that list, there's a lot of movies in there people still talk about and people absolutely love with a passion. And
well, it's all up to me. I mean, it's
absolutely 100%. Yep. But it's you guys had the folks that inspired you. You guys now inspire us. We now, hopefully someday inspire someone else. And it's this great cycle that keeps going. I think I have just kind of 2 or 3 little kind of joined up questions, I think, to close us out. We've gone very long. Thank you for all the time today and a fun chat. I'm really enjoying this. So one, I'll ask, what do you think makes a good monster, just in general?
God. Big teeth. What makes a good monster? It's sort of dependent on the movie. I think if it's character driven, you were mentioning the old Universal monster films, but so many makeups and brilliant makeups over the years for different movies. It's a combination, obviously, of whatever actor's playing this role and what the role has been written to be. Which is vital, and then actor, and then the makeup design, utilizing what it needs to be to tell the story of who this character is. It's not just slapping some big eyes on something, some antenna, and putting blood in its mouth and saying, "Yeah, that's good enough. Move, put it out there." Which happens, but it can take a lot of thinking. It's not like Rick Baker goes in there and doesn't give a shit about what he's sculpting. There's a lot of thought that goes into the whole characterization of this, whatever it is. Then if it's a big giant city smashing something or other, well, just have fun with it. You might want to take into consideration, well, something is so big, what would that have to look like? Generally never matters to anybody. Right, yeah. No. That just goes it's just also, it's about having fun with what it might want to be. I think when things get too, unless it's the movie needs it, but if things get so alien and beyond being able to recognize anything in it that's part of this planet, I think audience has a hard time connecting to or getting any sort of emotional kick out of it. It becomes too weird, and it's like, man, I don't know, what the hell am I looking at? Right. Unless that's what they want. Right. And so that's something I usually try to do, even in weird stuff, is incorporate things that were either animals that you could recognize or get a sense of something that was somewhere in the back of your mind you could connect to. So a visual hook that locks into an emotional kind of thing. It's like the baby dragons for Dragon Slayer. That was like I took the idea of a bat and a bulldog, both animals, and smashed them together. And sort of that's how that came about. With a sprinkling of dragon, and with a little dragon in there, and based on Phil's mama dragon. Right, which is amazing. No, and that's I think the context that you talk about is really key and crucial to say not just what makes a good monster, but what makes this monster for this movie good, or this monster good for this movie.
Um, one of
You're
those.
speaking like a monster.
That's a Tom like monster. And so this kind of goes with how things have changed over the years, but there is still a fair amount of prosthetic work being done in movies, and it seems like lately even more practical monsters and things like that. Even a little stop motion here and there. Why do you think those techniques endure?
I'm not sure, really. I guess it's because I don't know if this is true. I'm going to pretend it's true.
Sure.
That for me, there is a real magic to prosthetics and a real actor portraying a character instead of a full CG. I mean, and there's brilliant work like that, of course, but there's something really special about it when I think when the makeup goes on, if it's the right actor, that just adds to a performance, and they can become so much that character and get that across to the camera. I think that is very cool. Plus, just the craft of it for me. To see a really well done makeup job, it doesn't have to be a monster, it can be anything. And I'm seeing amazing work on these people playing just other people.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, that is amazing. And, I just like the artistry involved in that. There's artistry in the other two.
Absolutely.
I'm just fond of that.
Sure.
And it means a lot. And like stop motion too, there can be a hands-on feel to it. And to me, it's an accessible technique. Yeah. It's something that for puppetry and stuff, it's like Tim Burton's been keeping that alive for years. I think Guillermo del Toro is about to come out with Pinocchio. I don't know if that's digital or CG. I mean, digital or stop motion.
Or some combination.
I haven't seen enough of it to tell me.
Yeah.
I'd like to think it was stop motion. I think with him, it might be.
Right.
And but it's just another art form. It's a tool to be used in a way that is best for your movie that you're making. That's all.
Well, I think that's a wonderful place to cap this great conversation. I thank you so much for just all your time today, for chatting about all this old stuff and new stuff, and calling out Phil Tippett. And I look forward to the comments where people tell us that they found the chewing gum. And
it'll be hard, but yeah.
I had a great time chatting. I hope you did too.
I did. It was great. Had a blast going down what's left of my memory lane.
I think that's a perfect place to end this. Thank you all for watching. Please like and subscribe and hit the button however the kids do it. And thanks. We'll see you soon.
Bye.